From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Hey everyone, good morning. Happy Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. Packed show today. The Entrust breach, we're going to be talking about the Senate panel and the kids' online safety bills, as well as vulnerability management and ransomware, all that on today's show. But let's get this show going real quick. My cup of coffee, my double espresso, whatever you're enjoying this morning, make it yours. Coffee cup, cheers. All right, let's get into today's stories. The first one we've got here is around Entrust. So IT security giant Entrust says they're investigating an alleged breach. This is being blown out of proportion. Clickbait story really for what it is. I'll explain why. One, we don't know that anything was breached. We know that people were able to get access to the internal networks by getting their hands on credentials. But we don't know that this impacted operations. We don't know that this impacted any customers as of yet. So trying to rush to these conclusions doesn't help the investigation, doesn't help Entrust in trying to get their hands around this. Now, they did. The attackers did get their hands on internal credentials, right? And so if they got their hands on credentials and used them to get into their internal networks, did they not have MFA? And if they didn't have MFA, then that's a question we need to be asking them. Okay, so they provide security services and identity management tools for larger organizations in the financial, healthcare, and government sector. More on this story as it becomes there. The CEO wrote, I think, a great letter kind of showing, hey, we're working on this. You know, we value your business. We really want you to do that. I mean, I'm not an Entrust user per se. I've never looked at their product, so I can't give you a professional opinion one way or the other. I can say that a lot of this is you know, we don't know if it's a ransomware attack, if they had any data stolen. There's just so much out there. So the speculation is just, you know, what I care about as a practitioner are the IOCs and TTPs, and then what did they do once they got in? What did they go for? What kind of data did they go for? What kind of attack was it? Was it an attack to impact our customers like Microsoft, MasterCard, Visa, or government agencies? Or was it still intellectual property? Was it both? Or was it a staging ground for a more SolarWinds type of attack? You don't know until you have all the facts. We don't have the facts, so I'm going to spare you. We'll come back when we have the facts on this specific attack. Criminals are scanning for vulnerabilities within 15 minutes of disclosure, according to a new Palo Alto Unit 42 incident response report. They're constantly monitoring vendor bulletin boards for new vulnerability announcements, and the moment they see that, they start scanning for initial access to a corporate network or to perform remote code execution. The speed itself is mind-boggling, right? Within 15 minutes. The case present was Unit 42 is CVE 2022-1388 F5's big IP, right? So the flaw was disclosed on May 4th. Within 10 hours, they had 2,552 scanning and exploitation attempts of the unpatched F5 big IP products. That's huge. That number just lets you know how we run our vulnerability management, how quick we need to patch, how on point we have to be, how this has got to be a team effort. This has got to be across infrastructure, IT, security. It's got to be an executive priority. This should be something we report to our boards and our committees within our organizations. I mean, you're seeing proxy shell, 55% of the vulnerabilities were proxy shell log4j only accounted for 14%, but you're seeing these 0 days. The 15 minutes is all we've got, meaning system admins don't have a lot of time to start patching, and that needs to really have us become experts at how we manage our vulnerability management programs and our, you know, CIS top 20. We, you know, one of the more basic things is vulnerability management, and that's really where you eliminate a ton of your attack surfaces in vulnerability management. Experts are finding a lot of similarities between the new LockBit 3.0 and BlackMatter ransomware. There's a few and similarities that kind of bring it along together. You know, kind of, you know, codes have been leaked, the new versions, but the encryption process to each and every file, changing the icon, is similar. How the ransom node is dropped and some of the references within the ransom node kind of shows you the crowdsourcing that takes place within the ransomware as a service market, and how as they become more complacent as criminals in the way they do these because they think it's effective, the better it should be for the defenders, our endpoint providers, our EDR, MDR, XDR technology providers, to be able to detect these and be able to get more signatures and more TTPs and IOCs so that SIM tools can identify them, and so that scanning tools can also identify these types of vulnerabilities coming from ransomware. This to me is actually kind of similarities are good news. It means there's a common core. When there's a common core, you start to know what to look for beyond just signatures. The idea of we just signature-driven detection is not always the best move there as well. It's not always, you can't always detect every single great move here. And a good report. Finally, the IIS extensions are increasingly being used for Exchange backdoors. Microsoft is saying attackers are increasingly using malicious Internet Information Services web server extensions to backdoor into unpatched Exchange servers, again, unpatched Exchange servers, as they have lower detection rates compared to web shells. And because they're hidden deep inside the compromised servers and often are very hard to detect, they are actually far more successful. They get durable and persistent mechanisms to do that. And it makes it really hard to also determine the source of the infection. And by doing so, they're taking, again, advantage of vulnerabilities. In one of these cases, Microsoft saw custom IIS backdoors installed after threat actors exploited the Zoho Managed Engine and SolarWinds Orion. So obviously, that goes to our second story here, talked about 15 minutes within vulnerabilities, and then the persistence that the attackers use in order to gain access to our environment and then launch attacks from there. All of that is in this write-up here by Microsoft, and I think a really good place where you can see the different actions of how threat actors use these, and across, this is a global phenomenon, impacts everywhere in the world and every organization. Finally, Congress and Senate started to move on a slew of regulations around how organizations process data and market to children. So that's good. Senator Ed Markey is leading COPA 2.0, which is kind of like the update to the original COPA. It'll extend the protections to kids who are 12 to 16. It would also ban targeted marketing to minors without getting consent, which lucrative marketing is for kids. Someone who has a 9-month-old boy at home, let me tell you, we don't watch a lot of TV, but kids programming is slewed with marketing content, right? Just even on anything you try to put on is, my wife and I do a really good job of pre-watching anything we want to show our son as a general rule of thumb. It's all loaded with the kind of ads and the kind of marketing that really makes the kids go to their parents and have them part with their hard-earned cash. So seeing this kind of come into play is really important. The Kids Online Safety Act as well, also being taken up. Both of these bills are bipartisan. Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut and Senator Cassidy of Louisiana and Senator Loomis of Wyoming all are working on these bills in the Senate, bipartisan bills. There is an appetite in Congress to get these going. So we hope these laws come into place. And this is, I think, a piece of compliance that for many of us, we would welcome a piece of privacy for our children, giving parents more control over their children's data with TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. The last years have been awful for kids with COVID lockdowns. This would be nonetheless very, very welcomed. Folks, that's it for our show today. We'll be back with a whole lot more tomorrow. Until then, have a great rest of your day. And most importantly, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.